I shoveled red clay over a kid-sized coffin while my family popped champagne across town, celebrating a different kind of inheritance. An hour later, Mom texted, "Stop being dramatic. This is urgent," and I realized the funeral wasn't the emergency. The $850,000 trust was. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. It was March wind in Portland, cold enough to bite. My hands were raw. The funeral home guys waited a respectful distance while I finished what they started. I told them I needed a minute with the dirt and the quiet. My phone buzzed with that message lighting the screen like a siren. I read it twice, once as a son, once as a parent who had just buried his own child. My throat tasted like copper. I wiped my hands on the back of my suit pants and turned the phone face down. But then the next text landed. "Send a letter to release the account today. We'll handle the rest." I stood there with mud drying on my shoes, staring at the tree line. The trust wasn't news. It was the only reason my son had a chance to chase physical therapy in camps and adaptive gear over the years. When he was 3, an ER mistake caused a hypoxic event, and the hospital settled. The court placed the money in a restricted account. No withdrawals without a judge's order, no games, no shortcuts. It lived behind glass at a bank downtown, earning modest interest and waiting for his 18th birthday. He never made it to 10. 2 weeks before his death, pneumonia climbed on top of an old weakness and would not climb down. I slept in a chair by the beeping machines at Randall Children's, counting breaths. The hospital bills were covered by the settlement's medical component. The rest sat locked where the court left it, guarded by paperwork and a compliance department that signed emails with disclaimers longer than prayers. Except grief opens vaults for other people. After the burial, I drove to my apartment off SE Division with the dashboard glowing 3:37 p.m. The place smelled like laundry detergent and cardboard because I hadn't unpacked the sympathy baskets. My sister had posted a boomerang from a Pearl District tasting room, glasses clinking, her caption a row of gold stars. In the background, Mom's profile, hair perfect, a new silk scarf. And there was the script in my messages: urgency, family, what he would have wanted, and a deadline. "Our lawyer is filing Monday," Mom wrote. "If you don't send the authorization by Friday, you force us into court. That will be expensive for you." A timer then. 10 days in their minds, 4 in mine. I set it in my head like a smoke detector that wouldn't stop chirping. One problem, I wasn't the trustee. The bank was the custodian on a court-ordered restricted account, and the annuity portion, funded to bridge his therapies through adulthood, had its own rules. I had a binder with the settlement order, stamped by Multnomah County Probate, that said any distribution needed a judge's signature. There was no authorization letter. There was a process. I pulled the binder from the hall closet. The grain of the plastic cover had 2 scratches where my son once traced with a popsicle stick. I laid everything out on the dining table: order, bank letters, my guardian ad litem notes, yearly bank statements. I opened my laptop and started a new folder: estate, immediate. But then I found the email that made my scalp prickle. 2 days earlier, at 8:12 a.m., the bank's trust department had sent me a polite condolences, next steps note. It explained they'd received an inquiry from a family representative requesting expedited remainder distribution. The email asked me to schedule a call to confirm authorized parties. Someone had already knocked on the glass. I called the number and left a message: "Call me back now." I put the phone on speaker and began scanning. The settlement order had 3 pillars. 1, the restricted account, no withdrawals without court approval. 2, a structured annuity that would pay my son annually starting at 18. 3, the annuity had a contingent beneficiary if he died before majority. I had never paid much attention to that 3rd pillar because the idea felt like touching a rail. But now my eyes stuck. Contingent beneficiary, the Children's Mobility Fund of Oregon, a small nonprofit that had helped us with a ramp and a custom chair when he turned 6. It was named right there in black ink, agreed by both sides, signed by a judge. It meant part of the money would never be anyone else's inheritance, except Mom didn't traffic in part. She spoke in totals. The trust officer called back at 4:22 p.m. Her voice was steady, measured. "First, I'm very sorry for your loss," she said. "Second, we will not release anything to anyone without a court order or clear beneficiary proof. We've placed a compliance hold given the inbound request." "What did they send you?" I asked. "A letter referencing next of kin and a family needs assessment. No official documents. We've flagged the file." I recommend you file a notice with the probate court to ensure you receive service of any petition regarding the estate. You're the parent, correct? Yes. Then you should also request appointment as personal representative. That will keep the restricted account under court supervision. We will cooperate fully. Until that call, I didn't realize how much I had been holding my breath. I thanked her and scheduled an in-person appointment for the next morning. Then I turned to the printer and fetched paper. But then my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, my Uncle Reggie, the family negotiator, with a bakery box in one hand and his phone in the other. I opened because I was tired of hiding. He handed me the box. "Coconut cake," he said. "Your favorite." I set it on the counter, untouched. He walked through like he owned the lease, surveying the stacks of paper. "We're all devastated," he said, "truly. But your mom is right. There are time-sensitive things, and lawyers make everything harder. There's a court order," I said. He waved a hand. "Orders can be amended. Everyone knows you've been drowning in bills and missing work. The family can take pressure off. Cash in his account can finally do some good." My jaw worked. It did good while he was alive. He leaned on the back of a chair. And now it can set the rest of us up to keep his memory. "Your mother wants to create a trust for his cousins. Scholarships, camps, travel to build a legacy. She needs you to stop fighting her. Sign a letter. We already have a draft." He slid a one-page authorization across my table. It used my full name, misspelled once, asking the bank to release all funds to the family representative for immediate distribution. "Who wrote this?" I asked. "Does it matter?" he said. "We're trying to help you." I picked it up by one corner. "If you file anything, I'll contest it," I said. "I'll bring the settlement order. I'll bring the annuity contract. And I'll bring every text you and Mom have sent since Monday." His gaze cooled. He pocketed the letter. "Don't make this ugly," he said. "Family courts don't like drama." "This is probate," I said. He left with the bakery box. The smell of coconut followed him down the hall like a taunt. I locked the door and opened a new note on my phone titled, "Evidence, Day 1. I took photos of the authorization where it had dented the dust on my table. I screenshotted my messages. I printed the boomerang with the gold stars. Except screenshots don't win hearings alone. At 8:03 a.m. the next morning, I sat across from the trust officer in a glass conference room overlooking the Willamette. She had a neat stack of documents and a pen that clicked softly when she thought. "We'll prepare a letter confirming the hold," she said. "If you file for personal representative, bring us the letters of administration once issued." "I'll file today," I said. She nodded. Also, the structured annuity administrator already noted the contingent beneficiary. That portion bypasses the estate. We've notified the nonprofit. They'll need to provide a receipt and an acknowledgement before distribution. "How much is that portion?" I asked. "Approximately $400,000 present value," she said. "The remainder, about $450, stays in the restricted account pending court direction." The number settled in my chest like a heavy coin. Half and half. Enough to explain a champagne toast, and enough to guarantee they would fight for the rest. But then she slid a thin printout toward me. "One more thing," she said. "Yesterday at 4:40 p.m., someone attempted to add themselves as an authorized contact on your son's account. They used a Gmail address and listed their relationship as executive family. Our system blocked it. I didn't need to ask who. I called my attorney. Her name was Karen Liu, a woman whose emails were scalpel sharp and whose office smelled like new paper. I had met her during the settlement years ago. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. "You have 2 tasks," she said. "File for appointment as personal representative and file a notice that any petition regarding the estate must be served on you. Also, preserve everything. Print, save. Don't respond emotionally to them." "What about their lawyer?" I asked. "If they have one, we'll see it on the caption," she said. "If they don't, that threat was to move you. We'll set the pace." That afternoon, we filed. The clerk stamped a stack with that wet thunk that sounds like a gate closing. We walked 3 blocks to the bank so Karen could introduce herself to compliance. By 4:15 p.m., the restricted account had a red banner in the system, "Hold, court order required," until the emails started getting mean. At 7:52 p.m., my sister posted that grief makes people greedy. At 8:04 p.m., Mom texted, "If you force a lawsuit, I will tell the judge you neglected him. You left him with me sick while you worked. Don't test me." I sat on the floor with my son's Lego bin and read that twice. Then I opened my photo app and scrolled back to the week she meant. There was the time-stamped video of him painting at the kitchen table with a mask on while I microwaved soup. There was the pediatrician's message approving the plan. There was the bill for the urgent care visit. I took him to Saturday morning when his cough deepened. Receipts, literal and digital. But then she sent a PDF. It was a family minutes document on a fake letterhead listing action items and fund allocations with my name typed as in agreement by silence. My stomach knotted. Karen wrote back in 3 lines, "Any further attempts to misrepresent my client's consent will be presented to the court. Cease and desist." 2 days later, a process server knocked noiselessly like he didn't want to be part of it. He handed me a packet, my mother's emergency petition in Washington County, wrong county, seeking appointment as personal representative due to an action by the minor's father. She attached screenshots cropped to remove her threats. She attached a half-page letter from an online legal service that used the word expedite 3 times. Karen smiled without humor when I brought it to her. "Venue shopping," she said. "We'll move to transfer and consolidate in Multnomah. Also, we'll request sanctions for filing in bad faith." We filed the motion that afternoon. I added 2 new exhibits: the funeral invoice marked paid, and the email from the trust officer logging the attempted executive family contact. Sometimes the smallest word sabotages the largest story. Except small words don't deter people expecting a windfall. The weekend before the hearing, a cousin messaged me a screen recording of Mom practicing her lines. She was in front of a bathroom mirror saying, "He doesn't have the bandwidth to manage this money," glancing down at notes. The cousin wrote, "You didn't hear it from me." I stared until my eyes blurred. Then I picked up a pen and listed what I knew. The restricted account required a court order. The annuity portion bypassed to the nonprofit. The bank had placed a hold. Mom had tried to add herself. They had filed in the wrong county. They threatened to claim neglect. And what I felt, a quiet that was no longer fragile. But then Karen called with a suggestion that changed everything midstream. "We're going to lean into the settlement's purpose," she said. "The court approved this money for your son's care and for outcomes that benefited children like him if the unthinkable happened. You have discretion as personal representative to propose a distribution plan consistent with that. Draft 1. Make it measurable. Tie it to receipts, a scholarship in his name for adaptive sports, an annual grant for the pediatric rehab unit that kept him moving, and yes, reimbursement for your burial costs and last expenses as allowed. Put real numbers. Judges like specifics." I stayed up past midnight, writing. I named the Jalen Ward Mobility Scholarship after the boy whose sneakers still sat by my door. I proposed a $150,000 endowment at the nonprofit contingent beneficiary to expand their ramp program, with the rest held until the court closed the estate. I asked for the court to approve $18,400 in reimbursable last expenses, funeral, counseling, and the months I took off when hospital stays stretched into school years. I asked for a small memorial fund at his elementary school to stock the library with the 3 series he loved. It felt like cutting bone and setting it straight. Hearing day dawned pale. Multnomah County's probate courtroom smelled like old coffee and carpet cleaner. The judge was a woman with clipped gray hair and a gaze that found edges. Mom wore black and pearls and a face I didn't know. My uncle sat 2 rows back, tapping his knee. The judge called our case. Karen stood like she had done it 1,000 times because she had. She opened with the easiest point, venue. "Your Honor, the decedent resided in Multnomah. The restricted account and bank custodian are here. Petitioner filed in Washington County without basis. We ask for transfer and denial of emergency relief." Mom's volunteer lawyer, a friend of a friend who usually handled property evictions, argued family unity and time sensitivity. The judge waited. Then she turned to me. I stood. "I buried my son on Tuesday," I said. My voice didn't shake. The settlement that created his account was meant to help him live. Therapy, ramps, braces. The court kept it restricted to keep it honest. He's gone. The structured annuity designates a children's mobility nonprofit for part of what remains. The bank has confirmed that. For the rest, I've proposed a plan that keeps faith with the settlement's purpose and the law. I'm asking to be appointed to carry it out. Karen handed up our exhibits like cards turned in the right order. The settlement order with its thick blue stamp. The annuity page where the nonprofit sat in clear print. The bank's hold letter. Screenshots of threats and authorization drafts. My expense receipts. The scholarship plan and the library memo from his principal saying they'd accept and steward the funds if the court approved. But then Mom's lawyer tried to spike it with sympathy. "This is a grieving grandmother," he said. "She only wants to honor her grandson. The father is weaponizing technicalities to exclude his family from healing." The judge's eyebrows lifted half an inch. "Counsel," she said, "probate is not a group therapy session. It is a court of record." She turned to Mom. "Miss Ward, did you attempt to add yourself as an authorized contact with the bank?" Mom blinked. "I was trying to help," she said. And did you threaten to accuse your son of neglect if he did not sign a letter giving you control of the funds? Silence. My uncle shifted. The judge looked down at her notes for a long breath. Then she spoke like a metronome. Here is the order, she said. The petition filed in Washington County is denied for improper venue and lack of emergency grounds. The matter is consolidated. Here. The court appoints Mr. Ward as personal representative. The restricted account remains restricted. No distributions absent court approval. The structured annuity shall pay per its terms to the named contingent beneficiary upon receipt of appropriate documentation. She paused and looked at our plan. The court approves in principle the distribution proposal filed by Mr. Ward, subject to final accounting. Specifically, reimbursement of last expenses in the amount of $18,400 upon verified receipts, establishment of the Jalen Ward Mobility Scholarship in the amount of $150,000 at the Children's Mobility Fund of Oregon, allocation of up to $10,000 to the Harrison Elementary Library for accessible materials, to be expended under the principal's stewardship with annual acknowledgement letters filed in this case for 3 years. She lifted her eyes. Further, the court finds petitioner's filing in Washington County lacked good faith. The court awards attorney's fees to Mr. Ward in the amount of $8,200 to be paid personally by Ms. Ward within 60 days. Any further attempt to access the restricted account or misrepresent consent to the bank will result in contempt sanctions of $500 per day. My breath left me in one long release. I didn't know I'd been hoarding, except there was one more thing. Mr. Ward, the judge said, I see in the record an exchange that suggests harassment. If you seek a protective order limiting contact during the administration, I will set a separate hearing. I would, I said. She nodded. My clerk will give you a form. We stepped into the hallway that smelled like dust and hallway. Mom swept past without meeting my eyes, her pearls knocking lightly against her collarbone. Uncle Reggie stopped long enough to say, You made her the villain. I looked at the floor. She auditioned, I said. Outside, the sky had the color of boiled denim. Karen shook my hand. You did right by him, she said. Now do the paperwork. It wasn't fast work. The nonprofit sent an acknowledgement letter with my son's name spelled correctly in the header and 3 lines that made my knees go soft. The bank released nothing until the clerk stamped each thing twice, and I didn't mind. I filed a final inventory like a ledger, listing small things that mattered. A blue backpack with a lightning bolt, a drawer of socks with cartoon sharks, the ramp specifications we donated to another family down the street. The library sent a photo of a low shelf with a brass plaque no bigger than my palm, but then Mom mailed a check with protest in the memo line. Karen wrote back within the hour, payment received toward fee sanction. Note that memo lines do not carry legal effect. The protective order hearing took 9 minutes. The judge read Mom's text aloud and signed the order limiting contact to email about the estate only. My house got a little quieter. I took the coconut cake out of the freezer and set it on the counter until it thawed into a puddle. I threw it away. A month later, I stood in the gym at Harrison Elementary while the principal announced a library gift at an assembly that smelled like floor wax and oranges. Kids clapped because kids clap when adults tell them to. A boy in a wheelchair rolled up afterward and asked if my son liked space books. He did, I said, and we picked 2 together. The librarian wrote his name on a book plate with careful loops. On a gray Saturday in May, I drove to the nonprofit and watched 3 ramp builds go up in a neighborhood with too many stairs. A dad tested a slope with both hands on his kid's chair, then looked at me with those barn-bright eyes you see in the country. I didn't cry. I went home and pressed the settlement order into the back of the binder and closed it for the last time. I kept the judge's written order in a clear sleeve like a diploma. It said exactly what was taken and exactly what was mended and who owed what by when. It fit in one hand. My mother still sends emails sometimes that begin with "Please advise." I forward them to Karen, file the replies, and say nothing. Love doesn't always survive paperwork, but accountability does. Some nights, when the wind comes off the river and knocks the window just so, I hear the shovel bite again, and I think about champagne bubbles I didn't drink. I learned that grief is quiet work and that real legacies are heavy, built from receipts, signatures, and a child's name where it will be read again.